Hey everyone, welcome back to MSTR Daily. My name is Matt, and in this video, I want to show you why you are still early to Bitcoin and MicroStrategy because there are so many people that do not understand what's going on yet, which means that there is a lot of opportunity. And then I want to review a very interesting diagram from River that puts Bitcoin on Ray Dalio's famous graph of the changing world order. And then for our main story, we need to cover Michael Saylor's appearance on CNBC last night, and we need to break down the two very important pieces of information that he subtly dropped in the interview. But before we get into it, check out MSTR Pro, which is a paid group where I disclose and explain my personal MicroStrategy options portfolio. In my next video, I'll be outlining what I would do if I was starting over today and had to deploy 100K. So if you want to see that, check that out using the link in the description. Okay, first up, we need to watch a clip from CNBC yesterday where two of the analysts are talking about the use cases for Bitcoin, and I have to warn you, it is a tough watch. And I have to say, if you're watching this video right now, you probably have a job, you probably have a family, and you still had the time to learn about Bitcoin and read the Bitcoin standard, and now you get it. You understand that Bitcoin is the world's greatest money, and it's going to take decades to be monetized. So if you buy a lot now, it will be worth a lot more in the future because more people will demand to use it as money because of its superior monetary properties, right? That's not so difficult. You get it. But these folks on CNBC are forced to cover it because it's popular and they get views, but they have no idea what they're talking about. Watch this.
Still trying to figure out in his own mind, and many investors are out there thinking the same thing. The real use case is what?
The use case is this. Look, I'm sorry to step on your toes. This is the use case. It's people putting money into it, pulling money out of it, using it to buy other coins. That's it.
I think that's being very liberal with the term use case. But there is no use case. It's a trading instrument. It's where you can make money. It's where you can lose money.
To that point, I mean, post-Trump, when there's a lot of enthusiasm around the idea that banks will now be able to both custody and collateralize Bitcoin, and suddenly Bitcoin as an asset class opens up to the $200 trillion in institutional funds that exist out there, could flow into crypto, and even a fractional allocation of 1% to Bitcoin because of its finite supply could really be a huge tailwind to price.
And that's the issue. The finite supply is always going to keep the volatility there, which will prevent it from being currency.
Mackenzie, thank you.
Well, whoever these guys are, they need to talk to Larry Fink because they have around $40 billion in assets under management for their IBIT ETF, and a lot of those are buy and hold investors. You have a pension fund in Wisconsin that holds it. You have MicroStrategy. The US is about to set up an SPR, and this guy is so dense that he says it's only a trading vehicle. See, this is why in yesterday's video, I was so excited about a 200K Bitcoin because that's when Bitcoin will be worth more than every other company on the planet, and people will be forced to figure out Bitcoin or really be left behind. And bless Mackenzie's heart at the end, I thought she did a really good job here of laying out a very simple bull case in like 15 seconds. She's being very courteous and a true professional, but those other guys think that they know better than her. I mean, give me a break. Good job, Mackenzie. Keep up the good work. She outlines that banks and institutional capital will meet the finite supply of Bitcoin, and boom, that's a catalyst for the price going up. And the guy next to her is like, yep, exactly. That's why it can never be a currency because it's finite. And man, that is such a Keynesian way of looking at the world. They will be forced to buy Bitcoin at $10 million a coin in order to pay for their nursing homes because that's all the nursing home will accept at that point. And this is what I was talking about earlier. You have a few prominent financial news pundits on CNBC where they are on the air daily and do not understand Bitcoin whatsoever. They do this full time. They are paid to talk about financial markets. And if you don't work in finance and you figured this out, then bravo. You are smarter and will soon be richer than these folks. And to Mackenzie, keep up the good work. Okay, next I want to review an amazing diagram by River, a Bitcoin-only financial company, and they used Ray Dalio's thesis of the changing world order and inserted Bitcoin into the mix. Ray Dalio basically has the thesis that he thinks that China will overcome the US dollar hegemony and rise to power for another 80 to 100 years. However, many Bitcoiners, including myself, don't think this is going to happen exactly that way, and River uniquely differentiates between the global reserve currency and the global reserve asset. So who knows what's going to happen with the global currency hegemon? I think that the US dollar system is so entrenched in global trade that it may take a century to unwind it. However, we may have some interesting things that happen when Bitcoin becomes the global reserve asset instead of US treasuries or gold. Because for 5,000 years, gold was money. And in the 1900s, along with the dollar being the global reserve currency, the global reserve asset was the US treasury. Sovereign nations and companies would store their excess free cash flows in treasuries, but we are now starting to see that shift at both a corporate and at a nation level. So this transition will be interesting to watch. Okay, for our last story today, we have Saylor appearing on CNBC, and while this clip is running, I want you to listen for the two key nuggets that he drops. Watch this.
Well, Bitcoin pulling back today, but it's on a massive run since the election, topping $93,000 yesterday. That was a record high. That has lifted Bitcoin and adjacent stocks as well, including MicroStrategy, which revealed it bought more than 27,000 Bitcoins over the past 2 weeks. Shares of MicroStrategy hit an all-time high yesterday as well. Joining us now in an exclusive interview is Michael Saylor, co-founder and executive chairman at MicroStrategy. He is joining us from the Cantor Crypto, Digital Assets, and AI Infrastructure Conference in Miami. Michael, it's great to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks for hosting me, Morgan.
So I'm going to start right there. The torrid run we've seen in Bitcoin, is this all just anticipation about what a Trump administration is going to mean for it?
You know, the red wave is probably the biggest thing that's happened in the past 4 years for Bitcoin. It's incredibly auspicious for Bitcoin and for the entire crypto industry. But we're also getting a lot of very constructive support from Wall Street. BlackRock has been a very, very strong voice articulating the Bitcoin value proposition. And of course, MicroStrategy on October 30th announced that we were going to raise $42 billion to buy Bitcoin. And that's the same as saying we're going to buy every Bitcoin mine for the next 3 years at $85,000 or more Bitcoin. So there's a lot of bullish things going on in the market right now.
And I do want to get to that audacious $42 billion fundraising plan of yours. But first, there's a lot of regulation and regulatory aspects that are in focus with the Trump administration coming into play. SEC chairman, for example, a lot of expectations that Gary Gensler is going to step aside. And I realize Bitcoin itself is governed as a commodity, unlike other cryptocurrencies. But when you're talking about the ETFs and when you're talking about the cryptocurrency exchanges and when you're talking about companies like yours, MicroStrategy, which is publicly traded, it is SEC. So how important is that appointment going to be? And who would you like to see at the helm?
Well, I think whoever chairs the SEC has probably the most pivotal role in the entire digital assets industry. I think this is incredibly bullish for digital assets. It's very good for the crypto industry. We're going to see a lot more pro-Bitcoin policies. We're going to see a digital assets framework. We're going to see an end to the war on crypto. We're going to see a lot of pro-Bitcoin, pro-business policies. And I think that clearly the SEC will be a big part of it. So it's above my pay grade to have an opinion on who it's going to be. But I think it's pretty clear the House, the Senate, the White House, they're all very pro-crypto. So I expect that we'll have a very supportive head of the SEC.
Michael, well, as well as you've done buying Bitcoin, I'm not sure anything is really above your pay grade at this point, which leads you to the question, what do you think is the biggest threat to Bitcoin's price staying above 60K? What potentially causes another dive below 30K?
Yeah, well, I don't think it's going to 60K. It's not going to 30K. I think it's going to go up from here. I'm planning the 100K party. And I'm thinking it's probably going to be New Year's Eve at my house. So I would be surprised if we don't go through 100K in November or December.
So then what's the biggest threat to it going lower, even if it doesn't get that low?
I think the biggest uncertainty in the industry was November 5th. And would you have a blue wave? Would you have a red wave? Or would you have a split Congress? And would you have any dispute about the future of crypto assets and Bitcoin? I think that was settled by the people very decidedly on November 5th. And I don't really see any threats in the near-term horizon.
A strategic Bitcoin reserve, how likely is it that that is actually established? And why would that be a good thing when you're talking about a decentralized asset now being stockpiled by a centralized government?
Well, that's being sponsored by Senator Lummis from Wyoming, and she understands the value of the frontier. The United States was built by purchasing Manhattan, then we purchased the Louisiana Territory, then we purchased California and acquired Texas, and then we bought Alaska. The next great frontier is cyberspace, and the obvious thing to do is to own cyberspace, buy the future. And so I think it's a great idea. I think it will happen. And I think it's important to the United States because it cements the United States' control over the future world reserve capital network. Senator Lummis's bill will offset $16 trillion of our debt, according to my models right now. So I think it's economically wise, it's technically wise. And again, Bitcoin is manifest destiny for the United States.
So with your most recent acquisition of 27,200 Bitcoins, it looks like you now, based on my calculations, own about 1% of the Bitcoin supply. You just talked about this $42 billion fundraising plan. This would be a record-breaking plan. Half of it in at-the-market equity offerings and half of it in new debt securities. How will you carry this out, and why is now the time to go to market with something like this?
Well, all of our investors tell me they want me to buy more Bitcoin. They want me to raise capital to buy Bitcoin. And their number one concern was, are you going to stop issuing equity to buy Bitcoin? And so we were actually addressing their concerns. We did raise $2 billion to buy 27,000 Bitcoin just in the first 10 days of November. So we're moving fairly aggressively on it. I think our exact rate will be a function of the capital markets, but right now they've been very enthusiastic. So our plan is 3 years, but it's possible we'll do it much before then.
Okay. Michael Saylor of MicroStrategy. Great to have you on. Thank you.
Thank you, Morgan.
I love Saylor's response to the questions about Bitcoin diving below 60K or 30K because Saylor will single-handedly prevent that from happening by stepping in and buying as many coins as possible. Saylor is maximizing the limited time left under 100K to buy as many Bitcoin as he can. And here are the two nuggets that stood out for me. One, he went out on a limb and gave a subtle prediction that he thinks Bitcoin goes over 100K before the end of the year. And number two, and more important in my book, is that he mentions that it's possible that they can complete the 2121 plan much earlier than 2027. And that is crazy. We already know that they are ahead of schedule on their equity issuance plan, and they've used over $1 billion of the total $21 billion of their at-the-market stock offering that they filed for on October 30th. And with some of the recent convertible bond stock conversions, we could see more equity and more converts issued before the end of the year. So let me know what you think about all these clips in the comments below. And with that, if you enjoyed the video, consider hitting the like button and check out MSTR Pro in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.